Hey, boozers and shakers, we are coming at you live. We're so excited for a fall tour. It'll be the final installment of our current Here for the Booze tour.
The final, I think, 10 shows, something like that. But it's the final countdown. And we're very excited. But if you want a chance at ever seeing Here for the Booze one last time, this is it, folks, before we do our next big tour. So hopefully you can make it to the next few cities. If you want to, you can check out our tickets at andthat'swhywedrink.com/live.
We can't wait to see you there. Some shows are already sold out, so get on it quick. Bye. Vanish.
Bye. No,
I was hoping that I'm quoting Jeff the Mongoose. Before anyone accuses me of plagiarism, that's an original Jeff the Mongoose quote, Vanish, which I believe he yelled at other people before he himself vanished.
He yelled at the family he was living with, like, to vanish? Or
no,
maybe just letting them know he was going to
vanish. As like he was vanishing and he just wanted to remember, he is a Gemini. I think he just wanted to announce his departure.
He loves the theatrics. I appreciate that.
Loves the theatrics, as do I.
Hi.
So welcome to And That's Why We Drink, everybody. We're getting close to 300 episodes and it's giving me some troubling feelings about, am I supposed to be doing something to prepare?
Probably. I feel like I definitely haven't figured out my topic yet, which is...
I haven't even thought about it a little bit.
The butterflies in my belly are also angry. So
sorry.
But hey, 300 episodes. Talk about something I never saw coming.
Certainly not. What are you drinking today, Em?
When my belly feels better, I'm going to drink... I have a little Arnie P next to me from Starbucks.
Oh,
love a good Arnie P. I was going through a phase where I was like, I think it's time to change my drink order up. But you know what? I'm not going to.
Well, what was it before?
It wasn't. I decided against it. I'm not going to change it. It was either
I thought
Arnie P or it was always a green tea.
Yeah, okay, I see. I never knew you to order an Arnie P, so I thought maybe this was like a new development or something.
Nah, I'm afraid of change, but I wanted a cooler sounding thing, and now I don't want anything
never
else.
Hear about the London fogs anymore, so I thought, that changed.
That's true. The Iceland and fog is so touch and go, man. Every time I go, either they forgot the milk or they forgot the vanilla, or like it's not hot. I feel like there's definitely a shortcut way, and they like to take advantage of that whenever they can, and it just doesn't taste the same. I understand wanting to take the shortcut. Like, I also don't want to work, but
no.
Like, it's as the receiver of the drink, I'm not having fun with it unless it's perfectly done, and I don't want to be a Karen about it, so I just stopped asking. Are you there?
I understand. It's frozen for some reason on your end, and I don't know if it's my internet.
Obviously, the world and the internet don't want me to talk. So your turn. Why do you drink, and what are you drinking?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Today I'm drinking this. It's a canned bubble tea that I found at the grocery store.
Canned? You're fine with that?
You can be such a Karen sometimes. I know you're like, oh, I don't want to be a Karen, but wow, that just cut me to my fucking core, Em. Oh my God.
It did have the same energy of like, you're going to wear that outside?
No, it literally physically hurt my body. I don't know how you did that.
Here's my reasoning. I'm sorry. I just fucking hate boba. That's the only reason it came off that way.
I'm aware of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it, I guess. I got this at the grocery store. It's a Taiwanese brand, and I don't know what it says. But it looks delicious.
Here's my issue with it. It was not directed at you. It was directed at the can of boba tea.
Well,
I know you took it personally, and I apologize. And you had every right to, because I did sound like my mother there. But
you sounded like all our mothers. You sounded like
true.
Every mother. It was
I think
scary.
Everyone had a chill go down their spine. Which reminds you, as much as you can fight it, things might just come out of your mouth sometimes. Yikes!
Wow.
But I really don't like boba tea, and I really the idea of it being canned, which is so stupid because like it's already jacked with preservatives. Like there's no way it's like fresh and canned is any different.
No.
Also, it probably comes in a can to be dumped out at like a frozen yogurt place. But like in my mind, it being canned, I like associated it with like tuna fish or something. I don't know what my deal was.
Oh my. Well, if I can confirm, I just had some. It's pretty delicious. It is not quite as fresh as a, boba tea from a boba tea shop, which I do believe a lot of times they make those fresh. You are insulting every beverage worker in the industry today, Em. You're like, Starbucks takes shortcuts. Boba's out of a can. I mean, wow. Em is just...
At least if you work at a place that offers boba and beverages, know that you don't have to deal with me anyway, because I'm not coming into the store.
Wow, lucky them.
Are you like a boba on your froyo situation kind of person?
No, I like a granola on my... I like every topping on my froyo, but I like boba on its like boba tea separately.
What's your go-to froyo situation? You're going into a place you've never been to this brand before and you're nervous, but at least you know you can get this.
What I do is I put some flavor, usually something that's not like normal, like not vanilla, just like this much, like just a little bit, and then I put like 85 toppings on it.
I kind of do the same thing. I don't do a variety of toppings. I'll just like 80% of the cup will be the same topping. You know what I mean?
I just because I can't decide and I'm terrible at decision making. So I'm like, well, a little gummy bear, a little Oreo, a little granola, a little different fruits. But what fruit? Mango, raspberry, strawberry, all of them.
Really? Does it taste good as a combo
Not
in
really.
your mouth though?
No.
Oh. Okay, you get overwhelmed.
I just can't decide. I don't want to be like, oh, I just want like the bane of my existence are those ones where it's like pick 2 toppings, and I'm like, how? Like, and then they do it for you, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me.
Probably because of people like you that rule exists.
No, legitimately. I'm sure they're like, we don't want you to put an entire packet of Oreos on top of your ice cream today. But that's what I do, and I gotta say, it's not highly it doesn't come highly recommended on my end.
I wonder how well it would do if there was like a froyo place or like a Chipotle place, but behind the counter, all it was just a topping store. And like you're just like, I just want a cup of Oreos as I'm walking down the street. I want to throw a bunch of crap in one cup and see how it goes as I'm walking down the street. Like
Interesting.
I'm a big on froyo. Every time I get froyo, at least 50% of the cup is fresh strawberries because I just want to eat a bowl of strawberries and I can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, but that's so expensive. I feel like then you could just go get strawberries for like a quarter of the price at the store.
You'd think, but also I find ways to be inconvenienced at all moments and like
that's already cut up for you.
I don't have to wash it, I don't have to dry it, I don't have to cut it up.
That's fair. That's fair.
And it's on my walking path anyway. Like I never drive out of my way to go get froyo. It's always a spontaneous, I'm walking by thing.
Well, that makes me wonder. Well, first of all, I often go out of my way to get froyo, but that's a me problem. But it makes me wonder at the froyo serve yourself places if anybody ever just goes in and doesn't get froyo and just gets toppings, because that's the same concept.
Yeah, someone has to. And
I'm sure someone does.
I wonder if it's annoying to the employees, and it probably is, because you imagine you just spent all this time prepping a whole thing of strawberries, and then I just ask for like the canister of it. You
just get the whole thing. Oh, that would be annoying. Yes, that would be. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a great philosophical question, Em. I'm a little nervous because my neighbor, my next door neighbor, told me she listens to the show and she just started listening, and she's like, "Yeah, I listened to an episode and I just heard about your friend's cardiac problems for about 25 minutes," and I went, "Yeah." Welcome to the show.
I'm glad there's another person in the world who's nervous about me. Thank you for bringing it back up. Thank you for making me the star once more.
Shout out to Anne. And she was like, I mean, I hope they're okay. But
they're not.
And she's like, I did say like, oh, it's a paranormal show. And then I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. And I was like, no, it is technically. Just wait a little bit.
the first 20 to 30 minutes never is, but it's a very slow build up to the experience.
Yeah. So I do apologize. But so now I'm all on edge, like, oh my gosh, someone's listening, but she probably gave up already. I don't know. I don't blame her.
She's probably like, unless I'm bringing froyo to your house, I've learned nothing about you. So yeah. Or
Anyway.
canned boba, you know.
Try it. You might like it.
Okay, here is my silly little story. Oh wait, do you have a reason why you drink? Did you have a reason?
Just that my neighbor, who's just a lovely person and got the cutest puppy recently, listens to the show, and now I feel kind of like, oh wow, I feel like I'm disappointing all my neighbors,
That's silly. You're probably not.
hope
I
not.
think there's at least one shittier neighbor on your street, and whether or not you know who they are.
Oh, I probably do know who they are.
Oh,
Shout out.
fun. Well, I still have yet to figure out who my new shitty neighbors are because the original shitty ones have moved. So I haven't figured out who my new arch nemesis is.
Can't wait for that though.
Me too. I really miss complaining. I'll find a different way to fill that hole until future notice. Okay. Here is a little story for you. And this is kind of just like a silly little one because this was supposed to be the one that you and I were going to do together if we found the time when you were last in LA. Remember we thought like, oh, well, while you're in town, maybe
this
we'll
episode.
record.
I thought you meant like this story, and I was like, I don't remember that. Okay, the episode. Yes, right.
Yeah. Because in last time it ended up being a little bit of a whirlwind with me because we, speaking of my heart stuff, we had another health scare during our live show, our cryptids unscripted. So I think it became kind of a bit of a wild train wreck of a weekend health wise for me. So we ended up not recording an episode together. Instead, we decided to.
We did a gift opening video, so that's on Patreon.
We did a gift opening video
and some great stuff.
You and me and Eva all went to see a Broadway show together. That was lovely.
We did. It was a blast.
Anyway, so we had a good time, but the times where we maybe would have recorded, I don't think I was feeling it, and I ended up being
it was not your fault. It was just a tight trip.
I ended up not even being near you for like one of the whole days you were in town. I felt so bad about it, but
Yep.
So this was meant to be kind of like a silly one while you were in town, hence the silliness to it.
I see.
This was actually recommended, I think. So our lovely social media person, Megan, put out a like a questionnaire on our Instagram page or something like that about cryptids that people would want to hear me talk about. And this one happened to get multiple requests. I don't know how multiple people have ever heard of it because I certainly haven't, but I guess I've just been in the dark. So here is the story of Batsquatch.
What?
I know. It's a weird one.
I was hoping first of all that I'd heard of it, but I haven't. And then second of all, I was hoping you were going to say Bat Boy. Do you remember Bat Boy?
Was he the one on the front of the National Enquirer? I don't know why we all have such like that core memory because like I read a lot of National Enquirer as a teenager and Bat Boy really stuck with all of us.
I don't think it was even the National Enquirer. It was a different one of those. But I was just listening to a podcast called Wonderful with Griffin McElroy and his wife, and his like thing of the day was Bat Boy, which I think was on Weekly World News.
Yeah, I just looked it up, Weekly World News.
Yeah, and it was like this, and he went through the whole story of how they created the story, and it was just a very like fun story. So when you said Bat, I was like, no, Bat Boy.
Honestly, like I wonder if people would be interested in me covering that because I am going to deep dive it anyway now out of sheer curiosity.
You might as well write it down.
I might as well because I it's cryptidy and spooky, and I definitely informed a lot of our our way of jumping into things at the word bat. But no, this is unfortunately not Bat Boy today, but maybe I'll cover it later. Maybe I'll go through all those like National Enquirer, Weekly World News things and actually use them as sources for once.
How fun would that be to do like just a whole news story where you take those like for at 100% like validity? I think that would be really fun.
Got it. Okay, that might be my 300th at this point if I don't have another topic idea.
Oh yeah, it's sort of like The Onion, just like what if I use The Onion for my like true crime story of the. That would be so depressing. It would be
It would actually be the happiest story you've ever told, maybe.
Perhaps, actually, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Batsquatch is said to have come out of the eruption of Mount St. Helens.
Oh, okay.
Here is a quote from Portland Ghosts about the eruption and thus birth of Batsquatch. God, itching to once more throw his weight around. Kaboom! Everything goes tea kettle up. White becomes black. Black becomes white. Up is down. Down is sideways. Mother Earth hugs the toilet room of existence like a bachelor post-party. The whammy of all hangovers. Something wicked stirred. On the fringes of that desolate plain, the Batsquatch spread its wings and roared.
I'm sorry. I thought we already recorded the Cryptid Poetry Slam, but this seems like a top-notch entry for our Cryptid Poetry Slam.
Whoever wrote that clearly has a calling outside of just writing for this website.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a contender for the next Cryptids Unscripted, and also a contender for maybe the Weekly World News or whatever. With
Pulitzer Prize, maybe, I would say.
Oh, right. Yes, that one. Also the Nobel Peace Prize. Might as well throw that in there.
Sure.
So that's kind of like a silly entry into this. But just to keep it a little more seriously, I listened to the Camp Monsters podcast take on this, and they gave some more grimmer elements to Mount St. Helens. So it happened May 18th in 1980, and these are just a few of the quotes from the podcast. The force of 50 atomic bombs, 230 square miles, 150,000 acres of living forest vaporized and devastated. A cubic mile of solid rock, the largest landslide ever recorded, traveling at hundreds of miles an hour, burying everything in its path. A blast cloud 15 miles into the stratosphere, raining mud and ash, blotting out the sun, streaked with lightning and rumbling with thunder.
I'm going to take the Pulitzer and give it away. Take it and at least cut it in half and give it half of them to this podcast. So.
I like to think that between Portland Ghosts and the Camp Monsters podcast, they're just going to do a Katie Heron with the tiara and just
oh my God, yes.
Just snap the Pulitzer
You get half
prize.
a Pulitzer. You get half a Pulitzer. It's beautiful.
All well written, but definitely two different takes on it.
Powerful. Yeah. So for all international listeners and not for me, just because I'm so kind and thinking about all our international listeners, where exactly is this again?
Good question. It's in I do not want to say Mount Shasta, Mount St. Helens, because I feel it's on the. I think I'm pretty sure it's Washington State, but I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Well, it's definitely Pacific Northwest. I do know that.
It is. It's Washington State.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say the county name, but I am sure I'm going to mess it up. Skamania County? Skamania County?
Skamania?
Ska and mania, which are two of my favorite topics. But
wait, are they? Since when?
I like talking about both, but put together, it's apparently a county in Washington.
Okay, all right.
It's 52. It's 52 miles northeast of Portland and 98 miles south of Seattle.
Okay, that makes sense. I just not for me. I knew exactly where it was. I even knew the coordinates. I just wanted to make sure international listeners could figure it out too. You know,
I know. And that's why when they break off all the prizes, you're going to get part of the Nobel because you're just thinking of everyone.
I'm so gracious. I thought you meant because I knew the coordinates, but also because I'm so gracious. Yeah.
Whatever the geography version of that award is, you also win that one. Okay. So yeah, two different takes on it. And one of them obviously more realistic and very brutal, just to let people know that there were deaths. I think there was 50 something people died, but then there was bridges and buildings and cities that were just, destroyed. So
scary.
And because of this eruption, there was something called the dead zone, which is the leftover area covered in rubble. And the cryptid part of this is that this is where the Batsquatch is said to reside.
Whoa. Okay. Sorry for all our international listeners. Again, I'm just speaking on their behalf. They need someone to speak up on their behalf. What year was this that this eruption took place again?
1980, but I know you knew that. It's just
I
you're
did.
just
Yeah,
checking.
thank you. Oh yeah,
just
thank you
checking.
so much. I just wanted to like reiterate for everybody else, you know.
I know it.
Thank you. My
I know
history
it.
is pretty on point, so.
I know it, and I wouldn't even ask you to describe the dead zone. And the reason I wouldn't do that to you, because obviously your answer would just make everyone else's like not worth our time.
Yeah, exactly. I want to give you the spotlight for a moment, okay?
I knew it. I know. I appreciate that, and that's why I actually wrote a different quote here because I didn't.
Oh, good.
You would upstage whatever they'd have to say. So, so in the dead zone, this is in theory where the Batsquatch resides after the eruption and thus his birth out of this volcano. And when it comes to Batsquatch, this is a quote. It seemed the eruption had awakened something that was not content to go back to sleep.
Ooh.
And to give you an idea of this dead zone, in comes my description I found elsewhere from you, because that would have been too much. When describing the dead zone, this was, I think, also the Camp Monsters podcast. Very well written podcast. I don't know if they're like actually... I don't know if they're writing out scripts first or something, but these are not things that would just come out of my head. You know what I'm saying?
Spill out of our mouths.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like they're mouth spillers. So here's their description of the dead zone, just to kind of get you in a spookier mood, I guess. In a sad mood also. Not a bird, not an insect, not a branch or a leaf left for the wind to stir. Even your footsteps smothered by the soft ash, so deep, so light, the slightest movement brought it up in clouds. Clouds of ash that clung to any moving thing, following, filling, choking. It choked the carburetors on the trucks until they wouldn't run. It dulled the chains on the saws until they wouldn't cut. It caked and burned men's throats until their voices died. Until there was that silence again. That terrible, terrible silence. You'd catch yourself listening, holding your breath, waiting for something horrible, and that was just during the day.
Okay, I'm gonna cry. That is just so heavy.
Remember when I said this is just a silly little story?
Yeah, what the hell?
So that's just to give you an idea of the dead zone and like the vibes of this area. That
the hashtag vibes are pretty dark. Yeah.
The vibes are like not what I would want to match, but okay, so that is a little bit about the dead zone and the general area of maybe where people are spotting Batsquatch or expecting him to be. As for Batsquatch himself, there are reports from Mount Shasta, which is why I almost said it earlier when you asked where Mount St. Helens was. And by the way, Mount Shasta, we talked about that episode 168, and then I think we followed it or... before that episode, we covered the Lemurians.
Yes, you did both, I remember.
So if you want to go check those out, those were some pretty good episodes. But so there are reports from Mount Shasta all the way to Butler County, Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to call this a nationwide crisis.
Wow.
And people, whenever they do make reports of seeing Batsquatch, it is always at night, and it is always when it is too silent.
Too silent. Oh.
You know, that eerie silence?
Yeah.
And it seems like the main reports come from hikers in the Pacific Northwest who say that they see the Batsquatch itself flying out of the mountain crevices. Like, just taking a stroll, I guess. Just taking a little swoop. Yeah. He's described as a huge primate or wolf-like bat. He's over 9 feet tall with a wingspan of up to 50 feet.
Oh my God. What? Ew.
Yeah. It's like
that's way bigger
monster.
than I expected.
A monster. It's said to weigh more than 2 grizzly bears combined.
Oh, sure. That's a ratio we all understand. Yeah. A currency that I get.
I feel like if I could even get near a bear to try to pick it up, I wouldn't understand the weight of 2 of them. To pick it up. You know what I mean? Like, how am I supposed to know what this means? Like, someone must have just said it, like, as, like, hyperbole or something. Because when there's no way. If there's something too heavy for me to pick up, I don't know the difference between that and something else that's too heavy for me to pick up.
Precisely. Like, that just doesn't...
You could have just said the weight of 1 grizzly bear, and I'd be like, oh, that's equally as heavy in my arms as 2.
Nobody's going to know. I don't know the difference.
Yeah. Well, anyway, apparently 2 grizzly bears is the exact number. Not 3. No more, no less.
No more, no less.
He's also said to have bright yellow teeth, eyes. For some reason, I wrote tears. He does not have tears. He doesn't cry. He's
not a squonk.
We have tears. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have all sorts of tears.
If we approach him, he's not the one crying.
Yeah.
I think it's that he has bright yellow eyes. He also has dark black/blue fur, very sharp teeth, very sharp talons, and leathery wings like a bat.
Ooh.
And because of its appearance, some people have thought of it to be a flying monkey straight from hell who broke the Earth's crust during this eruption.
Oh, oops.
So, whoops, he just got away. I like to think there's like those like sirens, like a prison break or something in hell.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And they're like, we lost one, which also is sad because that means he's trying to get back home.
Oh, but where is home? Because he's still hanging out in those mountains.
Hell. He's trying to get back to hell.
I see. He's like he plummets and he can't get back in.
Back through the plates.
Oh, see,
Tectonic
wow.
plates.
Okay, so that's another award for you.
I don't mean to show off. I'm sorry. I'll step back.
You know what's so silly about tectonic plates, which it's not silly at all?
What? What could you possibly say next?
It's about my lack of it's about how bad of a student I was. Because I don't know what was going on in my childhood. I don't know who to blame this on. Probably myself, but I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But like 8th grade was the first year where like we were having like finals. I went to private school. We didn't have like the SOLs or anything like that. So we
What's
didn't
the
have
SOLs.
Oh, that's in Virginia. That's like the standardized test all public schools do.
Oh.
We as a private school had ERBs, which was the same.
We
thing.
did ERBs too.
Okay. So other than that, I didn't know anything about like finals. Like we'd never done finals before. And I must have just daydreamed every day for an entire year in my 8th grade science class.
Oh no.
And I didn't know that finals were coming. Or like maybe I heard the word finals and wasn't interpreting it as a test. I was just like, oh, like the final weeks of school. And I just didn't even occur to me. And so eventually there was like this huge, like it was the final on, and I didn't fucking even study a little bit. And it got such a bad grade that I guess the teacher could tell like, oh, somehow you completely did not translate that like a big test was coming and you needed to study. And now when I hear tectonic plates, which is what that whole thing was on, I just get like, I get that like wake up in the middle of the night panic embarrassment because I remember the teacher pulling me out of class in front of everybody to like tell me that I basically got a 0 and like I would like the threat in my mind was I'd have to retake 8th grade or something. Anyway, I hear tectonic plates and I get a little jittery.
I'm sorry that I pulled out of my very, very pea brain size limited amount of information about geology the one phrase I could think of that somehow also was the one phrase that would send you into 8th grade turmoil. I apologize.
A real tizzy.
Wow, my bad.
I remember writing the word like magma and crust a lot, and like and like probably for questions that wasn't even one of the options. Like
magma. Oh,
I think they were like the only 2 things I had processed. Anyway, so
well, yeah, crust and magma. Those are probably the only 2 I remember either. It reminds me of like cherry pie.
It was a bad. It was my awakening into what final exams were. So trust me, for 9th grade, I had quite a panic. I was like, I know what finals are now.
Day 1, you were like studying, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so blah blah blah. Tectonic plates. How do we get there? Oh yeah. So he's thought of as being like one of like the hell's minions that broke through the Earth's crust during the volcanic eruption. So he's also said to potentially have telekinetic powers, and people think that he can manipulate all electrical equipment or anything with a motor. So he's known to shut off TVs, phones, radios, car engines. That's probably
why my internet isn't working.
He's just swooping about. He's I'm just saying, he knows. If you hear I don't know what kind of sound. That's him. It wasn't me. It wasn't
Oh
me.
my God. Well, it's like in SpongeBob when they go, Nosferatu. I'm going to be like, Batsquatch. Leave my router alone.
I forgot about that.
I think about that at least once every 3 months, just for fun.
I remember even back then being like, I had no idea who Nosferatu was. And I remember thinking, that's a funny fucking
That's a
bit.
hilarious joke. Nosferatu.
It's like the Magic School Bus when they'd go, Carlos.
I knew I should have stayed home today. I think about that also every 3 months. Anyway.
Okay, so he's known to have telekinetic powers. He's known to manipulate electrical equipment. And this is just for instance, but the most well-known story we have of Batsquatch is from April 19th, 1994, when a guy named Brian was driving in Washington. It was in Pierce County, and his car stopped for no reason. And then something came swooping down. And there's different versions of this story. Not too many different versions, but it sounds like something came swooping down, and Brian happened to just see a tall, dark blue furred creature with yellow eyes and wings. The creature stared at him and then just shot back up into the sky and flew away, and the car started again.
Whoa. Freaky.
So that's the version. It really was 50-50, so I don't know what the right version is. But of the two, that was one of them, that it stopped his car, he saw this thing, and then it took back up to the skies and his car started. The other version is that this creature that's as heavy as 2 grizzly bears landed on this guy's truck, and Brian freaked out, and he got out of his car and he tried running, but then this thing almost attacked him, so then he had to dive under his car, and he hid under his car, and he could see Batsquatch's he could hear his footsteps walking around the car for until sunrise. And then it sounds like he might have gotten scratched up from this encounter, and his shirt was a little ripped.
So it's just a more involved.
Yeah. And I don't know which
encounter.
one is the right one. And by the way, by right one, that implies that Batsquatch is real. But I don't know which one Brian would tell us today.
I see.
So Camp Monsters podcast did a great dramatic retelling of this event. I'm giving you a blurb, and I usually try to give sometimes more detail than necessary when it comes to our stories, but they did a storytelling version of it.
I mean, I don't doubt it. They seem to be they're even me talking right now, I'm getting embarrassed just thinking about how good they are with words. I'm barely speaking.
I'm just talking, and I have to think
stuttering.
of every word before I say it.
We're not used to that.
Yeah, but if you want a spooky retelling of it and a narrated experience, Camp Monsters podcast. So that is Brian's experience, and I guess it was real enough because Tacoma News Tribune, they tried they wrote an article about it the next week in 1994. So in theory, there is a Tacoma News Tribune article about this Brian guy and Batsquatch.
You got to get in that newspapers.com game,
I know. I was in it for a long time, and then I used it mainly for my ancestry stuff.
Yeah.
And then I never used it for actual research because I just never found any.
A use for it, or a...
I feel like this is where it's much more useful for true crime sides to this, because very rarely am I finding ghost stories in there.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, so they did an article in the Tacoma Tribune, and Brian's mother has said that Brian has moved away from the area and does not like talking about the incident. So if anyone has tried writing him or asking for a retelling, he has not offered it. So there have been... Since then, I'm sure several other sightings that hikers claim to see something in the sky, or maybe someone's close enough to the dead zone and they feel like they're hearing something in the woods. But the two most recent sightings are from 2011 and 2014. In 2011, it was one guy who was walking his dog, and he had to pick the dog up because he saw something circling, maybe going to catch his dog. I don't... It could have been a vulture or a bird or something. But but could have been a Batsquatch. I wasn't there. So in 2014, there was apparently a whole Spanish classroom in Ohio that swears that they saw it fly by. There was like children, the teachers, they were all like, this thing exists.
How scary.
But also, like, as a skeptic, I'm pretending Batsquatch is real, but the event is not, where I'm like, but it's all the way in Ohio, and it's a random classroom, but no other classroom saw it. I don't know, but you know what? Maybe it's just a fun story.
Maybe that day, Spanish class, the teacher was like, let's go outside and talk about nature in Spanish. And they were outside and they were talking about, let me think of one word I can think of in Spanish.
Espanol.
I'm talking about nature. How do you say?
Oh.
Agua. How do you say tree? What's wrong with me? I should know that. I can only think of German. Okay, you should have said German class. I could have made this a lot easier. Cielo, isn't that sky? Or did I make that up too? It's entirely possible.
I don't know. Anyway, there was this Spanish class who did speak somewhat some Spanish at the very least. And they all said that they saw it
I don't
fly
know.
by.
I took Spanish in Ohio as well, and clearly I don't have much to prove for it. So I don't think we can confirm they spoke Spanish either. Just saying.
Our bowl is tree.
Our bowl, yes, thank you. Oh my God, what is wrong with me?
And cielo is sky.
Okay, I was correct on that. That makes me feel slightly better.
Oh my God, you're trilingual. That's crazy.
I know, and that's why I was giving my prize back, but I'm taking it back again.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
You got language, you've got geography, you've got history.
Geology.
Does your brain hurt just with all this information in there, just racking around all the time?
Oh, it's just gotten used to it at this point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a heavy brain. You must slouch a lot.
It's a heavy burden.
Well, anyway, there are some, let's say, amateur Spanish speakers out there who swear that they saw it in Ohio. And then this is another story I hadn't heard from anywhere else, but I found it on the Camp Monster podcast. So these people are really getting a shout out from me today. But they had a story that I guess maybe is local lore in the Pacific Northwest or something, but there used to be a summer camp in the area called Camp Tishalub, and it was known in the 80s because it was so close to Batsquatch territory and hiking territory and camping territory. It just became part of the lore of the woods that, the Batsquatch could be here. And some of the counselors would even take campers on Batsquatch, investigations or scavenger hunts, I guess.
Scavenger hunts.
And eventually, the stories got so scary that children began getting too terrified to actually go into the woods. And they're at summer camp. So that was causing problems.
Yeah.
Eventually, there was even one night around 2:30 in the morning where one of the cabins closest to the woods heard a groan-turned-piercing cry, and it ended up waking up half the camp. And there was this real rabble-rouser counselor named Jessica, and this counselor decided that she wanted to show the kids that there was nothing to be worried about, and she was going to go prove it by spending a couple nights in the woods with two of the other counselors. And then they were going to come back and be like, see, the Batsquatch didn't get us. There's no reason to be afraid of the woods.
Seems like a really weird plan, but okay.
Maybe Jessica was
just tired of the kids. She was like, I just need a break.
I'm glad you said it, because I honestly, if I were a camp counselor of several children who were also fighting me on outdoor activities during summer camp, I'd be like, I quit too. So
I'd
anyway,
be like, I'm just as scared of this Batsquatch thing as all you kids. I'm not about to go prove it.
That's a great point, actually. It's like,
I'd be just as terrified.
It's like, move over. I need to hide under the covers too. So Jessica and the two counselors decided to go stay overnight in the woods. And as they got higher up the mountain, they realized that there were less animal tracks, which was abnormal. And the only tracks eventually on the mountain were of this large animal that they couldn't identify. They ended up going to bed, but all of them woke up in the middle of the night to something next to their tent.
No.
They decided that they were going to leave, but when they grabbed the tent zipper, they could feel something on the other side, like something cold and bony.
Ew!
This thing started leaning and pushing into the tent and flapping wildly and scratching the tent fabric, and they were freaking out. And the flashlight goes out for a second, and that's when they hear heavy breathing and footsteps circling their tent.
Forget it.
Every now and then the sounds would stop, and then when they would think it was over and they could leave the tent, that's when the sounds would start again, and there were these weird gusts of wind on the tent, almost as if there was like heavy flapping of wings. They even saw teeth marks bite into the tent at one point, and they heard shuffling all night, and whenever they would turn the light on, the breathing would back off. Eventually the sun rose and they took off, and the camp later closed, I guess because that was like additional confirmation from adults that the Batsquatch,
or maybe all the counselors quit and they were like, okay, nobody wants to be a counselor here anymore.
Yeah, or maybe all the children were scared of Batsquatch. There's no context for that. It just so happens that the camp ended up closing later that year. So anyway, just another story to Batsquatch. I will always, when it comes to camping stories like that, my go-to is always bear or serial killer in the woods. But could be Batsquatch. I don't know. And the Batsquatch has been featured on an episode of Monsters Across America in season 3. It is sometimes called Washington's official cryptid, but I beg to differ because doesn't Sasquatch hold that title?
Yeah, I wonder if they're just trying to be like more unique sometimes, you know?
Maybe it's like Sasquatch or Bigfoot is like the official one, but then like Batsquatch is like his little brother unofficial cryptid.
Right.
And probably your favorite fun fact out of all this is Batsquatch is a beer from Rogue River Brewery. It is a hazy IPA. And I guess that area, I guess the beer is made in the same area as Batsquatch. And so it's like a local cryptid
I love that.
Mentioned in the beer. And the caption on it is, in honor of tales of the Batsquatch that are all a bit hazy on the details.
Oh, how fun is that?
And that is Batsquatch.
That's a great story. I really like that. And I really would love to try that beer.
Well, you let me know how it goes. I don't want to try it, but I bet it's going to really make your tummy so happy.
I bet it's going to make my tummy not happy, but my nice little brain very happy.
Your brain needs a break. Apparently it's won a bunch of awards for how intelligent it is.
You're right. It needs a little bit of a boost. Okay, well, I have a part 2 for you today, and I
was gonna say I didn't know. I forgot, and then halfway through my story, I was like, I think there's gonna be a part 2 to this.
Yeah, there is, and I have a little recap for you.
Thank you.
Just for all our international listeners, because I know you and I know exactly everything that happened last time.
Every word you've ever spoken, I've retained perfectly.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's pretty impressive for someone with like a smaller brain than mine to do that. Is pretty.
Couldn't be truer. Couldn't be more.
Yeah. You're so welcome, and you're so welcome everybody who's international and for some reason therefore does not remember last week's story.
And their brain is so small.
Your brain is so small. I'm so sorry. So I have a little recap. So previously on, and that's why we drink. Together, Dawn, D-A-W-N, Justin and Glenn. So Glenn is the head of this. This is, oh, by the way, before I go on, I'll tell you what the story is. This is the Children of Thunder.
Yes.
Part 2.
Yes.
Yeah. And so there's this guy, Glenn. He's like pretty unstable. And by pretty unstable, I mean like extremely unstable. And he has gotten his younger brother, Justin, involved in his shenanigans and this woman named Dawn. And here we go. So together, the three of them were planning to raise enough money to travel to Brazil and recruit orphaned children as future soldiers for his cause. The children would be trained as skilled assassins who would travel to the United States, kidnap the LDS church leaders, and smuggle them back to Brazil.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just a reminder to everybody, this is a mental health crisis.
Yes. And yes, this man is definitely, he's very sick. And he really devolved. He was, part of the LDS church and then broke off and decided he wanted to be the new leader and had a lot of, troubles.
He did have like a dozen rules on being magical or something.
Yeah, the magic. Yeah. That was
Those got me good.
Those were fun to read out of context. You know what I mean? It was like, like if that were it, I'd be like, wow, what a fun group of rules. But with the context of everything else, it's like, wish it could have just been a fun list rather than part of this story. But
yes, exactly.
So from Brazil, the hostage church leaders that these children assassins had taken back to Brazil, these church leaders would then write letters declaring Glenn as the new true leader of the LDS church. And then the 9 million Mormons of the world would gratefully accept him as their savior. This is his big plan.
Got it.
He would then develop his own awareness training. So remember that training that he made everybody go to where they like broke you down and like basically like traumatized you and like didn't let you sleep and, you know, just these horrible tactics. So he decided to develop his own awareness training called Transform America, and he would create a state of peace and joy in the country. This was his big plan. So that was part one. Now, this is part two, and I just want to tell you, it gets pretty grisly, okay? So this is where a lot of the actual, you know, murder comes in, and it becomes pretty dark. So just a little warning before we jump in. So we're now at the year 2000, and Glenn is 30 years old. His brother Justin is 28, and Dawn is 26. The three of them rented a house together in Concord, California, where they decided to enact this big plan where they needed $20 million. They decided to raise these children as assassins. So they had the plan, but they needed $20 million first to, you know, actually get the children and train them as assassins. So they were like, we need 20 million bucks. How are we going to get it? Well, Glenn looked back through, so he worked, I don't know if you remember at all, but he worked as a stockbroker for a while, and he was like really good at sales and really good with people. He was just one of those kind of charming personas. And so he looked back through his client portfolio from when he was working at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, and in it, he identified his first targets.
Okay.
Basically, he's looking through, seeing, you know, all of his clients' different financial situations. And then he's saying, who can we target to access their money?
Sure. Got it.
So their first targets are Bob White, a former client, along with Ivan and Annette Steinman. And Ivan is 85, Annette is 88. They are a wealthy elderly couple in Concord, California. And so recently, Glenn had also started dating a 22-year-old woman named Selena Bishop. And she actually was not a disciple of the Children of Thunder. She was actually being kind of groomed to be a scapegoat for the Children of Thunder. Like Glenn basically was like preparing to use her as a scapegoat for their crimes. Okay. So
wow, poor Selena Bishop.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, I'm going to go on a date with this charming guy who works at Morgan Stanley. No, not quite. So Glenn decided to position her to take the fall if there was any suspicion about his big plan. And Glenn even told her his name was Jordan, like made up a fake name, like didn't even tell her his real identity.
So from the beginning wasn't trying to, this didn't start romantic and then became a thing. Like he immediately was like, this, you're
from day one, you're just a part of the, you're like a pawn in this wild crime.
Got it.
And she had no idea. So Glenn also contacted a friend named Deborah to act as their alibi, but he told Deborah, this crime is drug related. So Deborah, like till near the end, had no idea this was actually like this assassin plot. Like she had no clue.
God, Deborah.
I know.
Well, can you imagine if like you thought anything else and then all of a sudden you found out that this is, oh my God.
And she does find out, and we will get to her reaction later when she's like, oh shit.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not cute. So Glenn asked Deborah to please act as their alibi because they're doing this. It's NBD. It's just this drug related thing. So Dawn, one of the Children of Thunder, gives Deborah $100, and then Deborah buys movie tickets and dinner for 4 people and saves all the receipts. To basically say, I was with Glenn, Justin, and Dawn.
Right.
And they were not doing any drug-related crimes. They were with me. So now they have their targets. They have their alibi, which is Deborah. And then they have their scapegoat, Selena, in place. And now they're like, okay, step 1, let's go. So it's July 30th, 2000. Glenn and Justin drive to Bob White's house in one car, and Dawn is in a second car. Luckily for Bob, he wasn't home when they knocked on the door. So the Children of Thunder got back in their cars and drove to Ivan and Annette Steinman's house. And again, this is an elderly couple in their mid to late 80s. They see Glenn. They remember him being their, like, basically their, I don't know if he's their wealth advisor, their stockbroker. And they invite him inside because they're like, oh, Glenn, good to see you. And this is your younger brother. Come on in. And apparently the four of them chit-chatted for nearly an hour.
That's sick.
It's sick. It's so sick. And Glenn and Justin didn't even back off. An hour later, they revealed their weapons and handcuffed the Steinmans at gunpoint, forced them into their car, and drove them back to their house with Dawn in tow.
Obviously, like, when I think, like, oh, which situation's worse? Like, there's no worse or better. But, like, there's just some, obviously, it goes without saying. But I
know what you mean. It just adds, like, an element of, like,
it's so much more sinister of, like, oh, for the last hour of my life, you sat here knowing you were going to kill me and let me feel
in
safe.
Your pocket. Yeah, exactly. And you just chit-chatted over tea? Like, I don't...
And then it also gives you, like, more perspective. It's also sinister on the opposite end because now you're looking at the killers and thinking, like, they're capable of having a conversation with someone for an hour knowing they're going to try to kill them.
Like for all intents and purposes, pleasant conversation and then not backing off, still going through with it.
I think because I always just imagine a killer is someone who is going to act erratically and impulsively, and, like, obviously there's premeditated murder, but in my mind, like, it's at least premeditated murder still has, like, only violence associated to it. There's never a
long con type
let's
situation.
Have tea and then I'm going to kill you. Ooh,
and it's like, was it too socially awkward to just kidnap them immediately? You had to wait an hour. Like, what is this delay? It's so creepy. And it's like they never stood a chance even after an hour of chit-chatting, which is just so dark. So they eventually go through with it. They kidnap them, bring them back to their house. And Dawn is following behind. So inside the Children of Thunder's house, Yvonne and Annette, I don't know why I'm calling him Yvonne. I'm sure it's Ivan. I'm thinking back to my AP Euro days studying, like, Yvonne the Terrible.
Where you got another award.
So many awards. Always thinking of my awards, It
never occurred to me until now that maybe the male version of Yvonne is Ivan or vice versa.
Oh, yeah, it is. I just keep saying it.
I had no idea.
Yvonne instead of Ivan.
Fun fact.
So, fun fact. Follow me for more fun facts like that. So anyway, Ivan and Annette are told to clear their schedules so no one would become suspicious that they were missing. So this is disturbing. Together, they called their daughter and at gunpoint told her they were going on a spur-of-the-moment vacation right away.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Wait, while they had guns held on them. Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
And Annette did the same, canceling an upcoming hair appointment. Then Glenn demanded $100,000 from the Steinmans. But the only problem by the way, he's looking to raise $20 million. This is his fucking brilliant plan. He's going to get $100,000 at a time from different people. What an idiot. Okay.
Wait, 120 million or 20 million?
So they need 20 million.
Okay.
But they're demanding 100,000 from their first targets.
I see where the math came in.
It's going to take a long time if you're, assassinating all these people for money, you're going to be leaving quite a trail.
And 20 million for what? Where, I want to see his budget list,
Well, I did too, because I thought $20 million to adopt quote unquote orphans from Brazil, then who's training them to be assassins? Where did you get the price? Who quoted you? I'll train 40 children to be assassins, but only for $18 million and then $2 million in airfare. I want to see the budget too.
Sense.
It's a little fishy. And so, he demands $100,000 from the Steinmans, but the only problem is the Steinmans' money was mostly assets, and so they would have to liquidate their assets to hand over the $100,000. So Glenn had Dawn call the Steinmans' financial team and pretend she was Annette and liquidate the assets. It's unclear why he didn't just, at gunpoint, have Annette call, since she'd already called her own daughter, but he had Dawn do it. So They pulled an all-nighter and basically did meth all night while Dawn prepared for her role as Annette on this phone call to get $100,000.
Jeez. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's also like, oh wow, like on top of everything else,
Yes.
there's just another.
It's an extremely messy story.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And it's like, it's mental illness, it's drugs, it's crime, it's like convincing people to do horrible things with the influence of drugs. It's all
layers and layers.
So layered, exactly. So a little after 6 a.m., Dawn and Glenn called Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, that's kind of like the old full name of Morgan Stanley, from a payphone to liquidate the Steinmans' assets. And the broker was shocked and told Annette, aka Dawn, this is going to cost you a lot of money. It makes no sense financially. But Annette, aka Dawn, insisted, and the broker was like, okay, if you really want to do this, it's your prerogative. So at the house, Justin is watching the Steinmans, and the Steinmans are awaiting release because they were told, oh, when we get your money, we'll let you go.
Oh.
Well, this was a lie. So this future leader of the church couldn't afford to be implicated in a felony, so he couldn't have any witnesses at hand, right? So he decided he had to eradicate this couple because they've witnessed the crime that he's committing. I mean, he also thought an apocalypse was coming and he was going to rule the entire LDS church. So I don't know why he was so worried about having witnesses, but this is just how his mind was working. And so Glenn and Dawn returned home feeling victorious. They had liquidated these assets. And Glenn forced the Steinmans to take 6 Rohypnol, aka roofies, each to cause an overdose. And then forced each of them to write checks that totaled $100,000.
Wow.
And the checks, of course, were made out to none other than Glenn's young girlfriend, Selena Bishop, because they wanted her to be the fall guy, so to speak, you know?
This poor girl. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
She is blissfully unaware too.
Blissfully unaware of her relationship with Jordan, quote unquote.
She just thinks like, oh, I have such a great boyfriend and my life's great, la-di-da.
Yeah, and there's actually even more that makes it just so much more cringe in a few minutes. So
God, okay.
It's just a little thing, but so of course the Rohypnol did not kill the Steinmans, and so Glenn and Justin went to plan B, which was to move them to the bathroom where Glenn tried to smother them with plastic. And when that didn't work, they basically slammed their heads into the bathroom's tile floor, which fractured Annette's skull, but still did not kill them. So
oh my God.
Finally, Glenn dragged her, this is very brutal, everybody, dragged her into the bathtub and used a hunting knife to slit her throat. And Annette ultimately bled to death in the bathtub. Ivan also died shortly afterward because his heart failed.
Oh my God.
I know. It's like, oh wow, what a quirky story until it's like so horrific, you know?
Yeah, it's done now. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Okay. And so Dawn was just kind of there. She just stood by and watched this all happen as Glenn and Justin carried through with this plan. And then Glenn and Justin began this terrible work of dismembering the Steinmans' bodies with a reciprocating saw, which caused horrible amounts of blood spatter, just a humongous mess. And then they placed the bodies in black garbage bags and told Dawn to go pick up some firewood to burn any evidence that was left over. And then Dawn wrote a check for $10,000 with Annette's checkbook made out to Ivan. And then she drove 50 miles to a distant bank to deposit it in disguise. Okay, so now she's wearing this disguise.
Okay.
I can't wait to tell you what the disguise is. She's wearing a lime green pantsuit, a strawberry. That's not what it says. I'm sorry. Oh, a lime green pantsuit, a straw cowboy hat, and is in a wheelchair.
So very inconspicuous.
Extremely inconspicuous. Wouldn't remember her, in a crowd. So it worked. Dawn deposited the check without issue. And even though she had misspelled Steinman, the name on the check, it still went through.
Okay. Well, ding, ding, ding on evidence number one.
Bold. Yeah. So the next day, Dawn put on her disguise again, this time posing as the girlfriend Selena Bishop's friend, the totally blissfully unaware girlfriend. And she told a banker that her friend Selena, needed an emergency heart surgery. And she's like, I have these checks from Selena's grandparents. They sent the money to cover the costs for this heart surgery, but Selena's in the hospital, so I'm here to deposit it on her behalf. Because remember,
big story.
Yeah, she had the Steinmans write the checks to Selena. So she's like, oh, this is her money from her grandparents. In reality, Selena was at home waiting to hear back from Glenn, who had promised to go camping with her that weekend, but forgot because he was busy like cutting up bodies. And so she's literally sitting around like, I wonder where my boyfriend Jordan is. He said he was going to take me camping this weekend. And meanwhile, all of this shit is going down, and this woman, Dawn, is pretending like she's Selena's friend, and Selena needs a heart surgery. And oh my God, it is so chaotic.
This poor girl has she's like probably just on Netflix waiting for her boyfriend to get there.
She literally has like her sleeping bag packed because she's waiting for the camping trip. Like she's ready to go camping, and Jordan is nowhere to be found. She's like, I wonder what he's up to. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh my God. I'm just always baffled by the concept of like someone who can obviously commit murder. Like I can't imagine being able to do that. But on top of it, to just have like a normal life every other day and like, oh, I'm just going to go camping later. It's like, what? Or like, are you just living in constant panic that you're going to get caught? Like, I don't understand.
I don't know. And I'm kind of glad we don't know.
I'm happy to not have the same brain chemistry, but it's just, wow.
It's baffling. And so Dawn, tells this bank, like, I need to deposit this on her behalf. So the bank contacts the Steinmans brokers to clear the transaction. The brokers are like, well, we need the Steinmans social security numbers to confirm. Well, guess what? They had the Steinman social security cards because they had Ivan's wallet and it was in there. So they called and said, oh, here are their social security numbers. And like, please go ahead and initiate the transfer. But the banker felt something wasn't right and spoke to Dawn again and said, I actually would like to speak directly with the Steinmans themselves before I clear any checks. So she tells Glenn this, and he's frustrated, and he decides, this might make you even more mad than the whole chit-chatting for an hour.
What?
He decides to call off the whole plan. He's like, let's find our money another way. And just like bails on this entire plan. Like he
what?
Obviously their deaths were already horrific and pointless and brutal and senseless, but this feels like almost just as like frustratingly
it feels like a super obviously fucked up power move of like, oh, this I have better things to do with my time.
Yeah, it's like, never mind, that was too hard. Like even though you've already murdered them.
Yeah, even though like the killing was so hapless, like, oh, I could do that any other
day.
Like
like it almost like a hiccup in the plan, and it's like, oh, we'll find another plan. So it's just like, so it makes it even more senseless, and it's hard to say like, oh, the murder was now more senseless because like there was no sense in it.
Or like at least go through with it so their killings were worth it. Like no one's gonna say that,
right?
But
exactly.
But it's
There's
like
it's just more of a sense of like, you can see that they don't give two shits about these people because they don't even, it doesn't faze them.
They were no more significant of a notch in the plan as like going to the store and getting supplies.
Exactly. It's just like swept aside. And so it just feels extra disgusting.
Yeah.
And so we're back to Selena now. I guess she's still seeing him even though he forgot about their camping trip, because on Wednesday, August 2nd, Glenn meets Selena for dinner and invites her over to his house. He tells Selena that his bathroom had been remodeled and he wanted her to see it.
Okay.
She didn't realize he was holding a hammer in his hand. Yeah. But while they're talking, he couldn't bring himself to kill her. So he decided, let's have a wine and game night with Justin and Dawn, my two best friends.
So it's just happening again, like just like, oh,
Yes.
It's also like, I wonder if it's like one of those power moves. You know how like a cat and mouse, like the cat knows it could kill the mouse, but just wants to tease it
to play along. Yeah.
It feels like a playing on like knowing I could get you, knowing that I almost killed you, but because of me, you're alive. And
that's a great point, especially since he thinks he's like this leader of, mankind. He probably already has a power trip going.
Oy.
So they played Risk. Imagine your last few hours on this earth. You're playing Risk. That's M's nightmare.
Also, my nightmare, but also like talk about the irony.
Oh, true. Yeah, you're doing like a strategy game and like a warfare
called Risk.
Game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they played Risk, and the trio snuck Rohypnol into Selena's wine, but she literally saw the crushed pills in her wine and was like, "What is this?" And Glenn was like, "Oh, sorry, my glasses are dirty."
So then did she just go dump it out and they had to do it again?
She didn't drink it, but they moved on to plan C. And Glenn, this is really bad.
What was plan C?
Glenn told Selena to lie down on the floor for a back massage. And she lay down on the floor and he started massaging her shoulders. And then Justin used a hammer to beat Selena to death.
Oh my God.
And they wrapped her in a blanket, put her in the kitchen, and then prepared the bathroom to dismember her. This is awful again because it gets worse, of course. Dawn realized Selena was still alive, and Glenn took the hammer and basically made sure that she was dead.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's so horrible. It's so horrible.
Oh my God.
So the brothers moved Selena to the bathtub, which they filled with water. Then Glenn slit her throat in the water, beckoned for Dawn, and declared, quote, "Spirit says you get to know this is not a dream."
What?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not even going to try to understand that. The trio then dismembered and disposed of the body, then the evidence. Now there's only one loose end, which was Selena's mom. Her mom's name was Jenny, and Jenny had met Glenn once, but as Jordan, like Selena's new boyfriend. So he was like, shit, she knows what I look like. She might be able to recognize me and like identify me as a suspect. So Jenny was staying at Selena's apartment because Selena was like, I'm going camping with my boyfriend, Jordan. So Jenny is staying at Selena's apartment, and around 4 a.m. on Thursday morning, August 3rd, Glenn went through the garage, accessed the apartment, and instead of Jenny, he encountered a 54-year-old man named Jim. Shocked, Glenn opened fire, striking Jim multiple times. Jenny woke up to the commotion, and Glenn shot her twice in the face and fled. Then he had breakfast with Justin and Dawn, and they decided they had to remove the teeth from all of their victims to conceal their identities. So,
oh my God.
Another trigger warning for tooth stuff. Justin and Glenn dismembered all the bodies, and Dawn held the victims' heads as the brothers pulled their teeth out.
Holy shit. Wow, this is just
so brutal and disgusting and graphic.
Remember during my story when everything you said was just so eloquent? And
I know. I'm
great
sorry.
storyteller.
I'm so sorry.
And now every time you talk, I just really wanted to stop.
I'm just ruining your life. I'm sorry. They rented a trailer and a jet ski, which they used to dump the trash bags full of bodies into a deep section of the Sacramento Delta. They had 9 trash bags.
Wait, I just realized that's all body parts?
Body parts.
And how many people have they killed now by now? That's 5?
So 1, 2, 3... Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5.
Well, I guess like horrible fun fact. It's 5 people is 9 trash bags worth. That's so horrible. Oh my God.
On the way home, Children of Thunder stopped for celebratory tequila shots. And then Glenn decided to join some of his friends at a music festival called Reggae on the River, while Justin and Dawn were sent to clean up more evidence. There was clothing. There were 2 saws. Selena's car needed to be, disposed of. The Steinmans' cars, which they ditched randomly. And then Glenn instructed them to put Ivan's wedding ring in Selena's car. Because then he was like, oh, this way, police will think Ivan and Selena were having an affair. And that's why their killings are linked. Like, he just had some plan
Genius.
to try and connect them.
Fucking brilliant.
Brilliant. So they couldn't get the blood out of their carpets at the house. Again, they had used this, reciprocating saw. This was very brutal, very messy. And so they were overwhelmed and, had been on this like week-long meth bender, and they were just so over it. So Dawn left to stay with Deborah, who, by the way, Deborah still thinks, oh, I just bought like an alibi for their little like drug thing.
Has
like,
no idea about
no
the
idea.
murders.
No.
Oh my God. Wow.
So
Okay.
Dawn's like, can I stay with you? And Deborah's like, sure. And then she's like, hey, Deborah, I have this like wheelchair and some other, and a lime green suit and like a lime green sweatsuit and stuff. Can you just keep these for me? And she was like, okay, sure. You can keep them at my house.
If anyone ever, after this being my job, if anyone ever stopped by and said, oh yeah, can you just hold on to this for me? I'd be like, you betcha. And then I would hold it for them at the police department. I'd be like...
I would put on gloves and like carry it myself to the evidence locker.
Exactly. I'd be like, set it down. I will absolutely not touch that with my bare
Who
hands.
have you killed?
Oh my God.
So then Justin decided to pay a professional cleaner $700 and to try and get the blood out of the carpets. And Dawn had to come home and pay it. And when the cleaner came, they told her that the blood stains were actually just from Kool-Aid. So don't even worry about it. But try to get them out.
I feel like if you're a professional cleaner, the difference between Kool-Aid and blood.
And blood? Are you kidding me? Yeah. Even the smell alone. Sorry to be gross, but like,
right. Yeah. Well, first of all, one smells delicious. So
guess which one it is.
Yeah. It's up to you to make that call.
Yeah. It's up to you.
If you're a vampire, you might have a different opinion than me. But no, I mean, like, I would imagine chemically too. Like, there are things you do for certain
like food coloring.
Stains.
Yeah, exactly. So police soon found Jenny's and Jim's bodies. Those were the parents of Selena who were at her apartment and were absolutely baffled by the scene. One investigator recalled later, quote, for the first few hours, it was kind of a, what the heck possibly happened here? We knew we had at least a missing person. We weren't sure if perhaps Selena was involved with this murder or if she herself had been a victim of foul play. So basically, they knew this was Selena's apartment. They knew these were her parents, but they were like, we don't know where Selena is, and we don't know why her parents have been brutally killed. So police began notifying family members, and one family member tried to get a hold of Selena to try and comfort her about her mother's death, but couldn't reach her.
Oh, and how many days has it been since she's died, by the way?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think only a couple days, not very long.
Still, it's so sad. It's so sad to think, oh, there were days where I just thought this person was walking around.
Yes, yeah, and like had no clue. And then all 3 of them had been killed. So they figured, she was on her camping trip. That's why she wasn't answering the phone. Still, they were like, oh, but she's with this guy, Jordan, so we should at least talk to him. So he became a person of interest to the police. An investigator found out that this Jordan fellow had a brother named Justin and did some digging and finally put the pieces together and realized Jordan, the boyfriend, was actually this guy, Glenn Taylor Helzer. At this point, though, investigators still hadn't connected this case to the Steinman disappearance because, like, why would they be connected? There was just no rhyme or reason at this point. And so investigators and the Concord SWAT team ultimately burst into the Children of Thunder's house early one morning at 6 a.m. And Glenn tried to escape through the backyard, but he was caught. And Justin and Dawn surrendered peacefully. But once inside the police car, Glenn pushed his body against the window of the police car, popped the window out of place, jumped out of the vehicle, and made a break for it in just his boxers.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. He ran into a neighborhood house, like a random person's house, pointed his fingers at the occupant as if pretending to have a gun and demanded their car keys. But the homeowner luckily had 2 big dogs who chased him off. Then Glenn entered another home of a woman who assumed he was her son's friend and invited him in. He took a knife from her kitchen, demanded her car, but her car was in the shop for repairs. She was like, you can have it, but it's not here.
Oh my God.
So she de-escalated the situation, what a champ, by offering him some clothes. And so he took the clothes and left. So,
well, he was probably like, that's necessary to not be so obvious as I'm on the run.
Exactly. I at least need some khakis to blend into or a lime green pantsuit and a straw cowboy hat to blend into the crowd.
That's all it'll take, yeah.
So officers surrounded Glenn in another backyard and brought him in for questioning. Meanwhile, investigators found plenty of evidence and drugs to hold the Children of Thunder as they looked for more. Then the banker who had denied Don the check deposit saw a news report about the Steinmans' disappearance and was like, oh my God, like this person has been coming in trying to cash checks on behalf of the Steinmans, and even mentioned Selena Bishop by name. So now they're like, wait a second, there's this weird connection. Like the banker's talking about Selena Bishop, who is a totally separate case than the Steinmans. So they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. On August 7th, a man out jet skiing on Mokelumne River in Sacramento County discovered a duffel bag floating in the river. And inside he found concrete, trash bags, and my least favorite thing, a human torso. Throughout the week, investigators recovered more and more bags from the water until finally they confirmed they were the bodies of Ivan, Annette, and Selena. Still, they were like, what the fuck is the connection here between all of these people? One investigator said of the case, it was just bizarre and every day something worse would surface. So back at the killer's house, they found a note that read, head and teeth, 2 hours.
And wait, what?
I don't know. It said head and teeth, period, 2 hours. So I don't know.
Does it mean like I mean, I won't know.
I know they were trying to take the teeth to try and maybe they were scheduling it. I don't know. Like maybe
or like this is how long it'll take to take them all out, or this is how far away they need to be hidden from the actual body. I mean, it could be anything.
It could be anything. And they found that note along with the hammer that had been used to kill Selena. So investigators contacted Deborah, the alibi, and when she found out this crime was about murder, and not just murder, but like a series of murders, not drugs, she immediately was like, well, fuck no, I had no idea. I was just told like this was a drug thing, so I bought movie tickets and dinner for everybody. Like I didn't know that this was such a heinous crime that was going on. And she also said, oh, and by the way, that Dawn lady left me a wheelchair, a gun, ammunition, a cowboy hat, and a lime green pantsuit. So you might want those as well.
Oh my God.
So she hands over all the evidence. And there was also Selena's driver's license and social security card, Annette's wallet, Ivan's insulin, and both of their checkbooks and bank statements. So they had just like kept all of this shit. So obviously the police immediately had enough evidence to be like, okay, well, obviously they did it. Deborah also had the written script that Dawn had practiced with before she went to the bank in disguise.
Oh my God.
And this was all kept in a safe. So Deborah hadn't really realized everything that was in the safe. She just said like, oh, Dawn is keeping some stuff in my safe. And they opened it and were like, yeah, that's really bad. And so finally they're seeing the script that Dawn went to the bank with, and they're finally putting all the pieces together and seeing how these deaths are linked.
Oh my God.
So Dawn, Justin, and Glenn were all set to face the death penalty at trial. The boy's mother, Karma, tried to secure a private attorney but couldn't afford it. The defense went to the county attorney office where Dawn's court-approved lawyer worked to get her out of the death penalty, and her attorney actually contacted a cult deprogrammer who...
Oh, interesting.
I know. This is so fascinating. He actually attended that group awareness training that Dawn had attended.
Yeah.
That Glenn had made her attend, and he attended it just to understand
Interesting.
Dawn, right? I thought that was like so powerful.
What a good way of using resources.
Absolutely. 100%. I was so impressed by that. So he went to this group awareness training, went through the whole like lack of sleep and all that just to see like what Don had gone through. He then used that knowledge and his previous knowledge of, cult deprogramming to appeal to Don, and finally basically had to convince her that deprogram her and convince her that Glenn was not a prophet. Like she had been fully on board with all of this, thinking like the ends justify the means. He's a religious prophet.
I would love to sit in on a workshop like that. Like, how do you deprogram a cult member? Like, what? I feel like you can't just learn them in like a 6-hour conference,
There's
like
probably so much psych behind it,
Yeah. Wow.
I bet there's some show, some Netflix or HBO special you could watch about that, honestly.
Probably. I mean, at least a TED Talk,
At least a TED Talk. There's always a TED Talk. So basically, he had to deprogram her and convince her, like, this guy Glenn is not a prophet. And he, by the way, that also means like you've been used, and you've been used to really hurt a lot of people, which is like, I imagine, a hard thing to accept.
I was going to say, did Dawn fully deconstruct this time in her life? Like, so
I think she just had to fully accept, like, I just killed, or at least she didn't actually hands-on kill anyone, but she just stood by while people were being killed. And it's like that, I would want to live in that fantasy of like, oh no, he was a prophet. Like,
well, sure, like no one wants to think that that's a justified thing. Yeah, exactly.
So he was able to, to convince her of that. And then a famous forensic psychologist who usually avoided testifying for defense then interviewed Dawn and was like, she's not a violent person, and I believe she had truly fallen victim to psychological torment and had been legally insane at the time of the crimes.
Yeah.
So Dawn underwent a polygraph test to assure she hadn't personally committed any of the killings. She was only an accessory. And then the court used Dawn as a witness for against the brothers to secure the death penalty. So she testified against them once she had kind of been like deprogrammed out of being on their side, basically. She was spared the death penalty, but she did plead guilty to 13 felonies. And then as the trial approached, Glenn maintained his innocent plea, but Justin, this is pretty sad. It gets sad, and actually, the more I think about it, the more just like it breaks my heart. But remember in the last episode when I was talking about how Glenn and Justin's mother kind of saw Glenn as like this, like he had been going through some mental health stuff and mental illness, and she kind of fed into it by saying, no, these are messages from spirit. God is speaking to you, and then she told all of Glenn's siblings, like, you have to listen to him. Yeah. And so Justin, at this point, when the trial rolls around, he kind of like backs completely off and basically says he has no defense, no excuse, no reasoning. And he said, I'm guilty. I'm 100% guilty. I have no excuse, no reason. Wow. I just did what my brother said. Oh. It's really awful, but that's just where he stood when the trial started. So
at least he was honest, I guess.
I know. It's sort of like he just kind of gave it all up.
I wonder if he had an awakening, or if he always knew, like, this is fucked up.
I don't know.
My brother's saying something. I don't know.
That's a great point. Because he was much more hands-on with the crimes rather than Dawn. Yeah. Like, he physically killed Selena. Mm-hmm. So in just under 6 weeks of trial on June 16, 2004, the jury found both brothers guilty of all counts in less than 7 hours of deliberation. Glenn and Justin were both sentenced to death. Dawn was sentenced to 38 years to life in prison, despite her, being just an accessory. Glenn apologized to his victims' families and said he now saw that his killings were unspeakably horrific, but he continued trying to preach as a prophet. But fortunately, this time no one was listening, so he didn't. Gather a new set of followers. Justin, unfortunately, just declined. He was so deeply remorseful. And I actually have an example of like just how bad things got.
Okay.
So in 2012, Nancy Mulaney was allowed to interview inmates on death row in California, and she found that Justin had severely disabled himself and gone nearly blind in a suicide attempt by trying to gouge his eyes out.
Holy shit.
And
Oh my God.
he said to Nancy, "I apologized. It was erroneous. It was so misdirected. I'm so sorry. It's like a past life. I'm so not that person anymore, so I don't have a problem admitting what I did." And she actually did an Ask Me Anything on on Reddit, like a Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked her, a user named 14th Century Hood asked her, "Hi there, which case/prisoner was most disturbing to you and why?" And then It's Nancy Mulaney responded, "Yes, one inmate, Justin Helzer. There was a visually impaired sign hanging outside his cell door next to a wheelchair. When I asked to speak with him, he was open and willing, and his story was horrifying. He had tried to kill himself inside his cell by trying to puncture his eyes with Bic pens."
Oh my God.
And I want to be clear that I'm just reading the wording here. You know, this is not really the way we like to speak about suicide, but I'm just quoting this. "Instead of killing himself, he was blinded and paralyzed. His story said so much about how deeply depressing it is for the men I met on death row to be locked in their cells 23 to 24 hours a day for the rest of their lives." And then in 2013, he used a sheet to hang himself, completing suicide. And so he's since passed. And Glenn himself is still on death row at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego, California. And that is the just despicable, horrific case of the Children of Thunder cult.
Holy crap.
The end.
The end. Wow.
Sorry.
No. Great storytelling, but a horrible story to tell.
It is a horrible, horrible story to tell. It's just terrible. It's just terrible.
Boy.
You know, be careful out there, folks.
It just kept getting worse with the attempt on his life and the.
Oh, I mean, it's like it's like Glenn just left a wake of tragedy.
And you know, the sick part is he would fucking eat it up too. He'd be like, "Well, everyone remembers me.
Well, I'm a prophet."
Yeah. Right. Okay. Have you ever? This is a personal request, which you have yet to cover. But speaking of prophets, eventually, I'm gonna need you to cover Warren Jeffs.
Oh yeah, that's one that's been on the list that I think you actually requested a few years ago, and I've
avoided
really not really avoided it, just haven't, I don't know, gotten around to yet. But that, and I'm, there's so many different docuseries I still need to watch that kind of branch off of Warren Jeffs. So I think I'm waiting till I'm like really in the black hole of it before I like.
It's almost like a Dahmer or Bundy case.
Yeah,
it's just there's so much content about him,
and there's so much that branches off of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to cover him, but I know I really hate the phrase of like, "Oh, who's your favorite crime?" Like that's so icky. But I will say I happen to know a lot about him, and I don't know a lot about others. So I feel like I'm prepared for that story a little more than usual.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'll definitely have to do that. Maybe that'll be 300. Let me write this down just in case. It might not be because I might not remember, but it might be.
It would be a really wacky episode if I'm covering Bat Boy at a National Enquirer and you're covering Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
Also wondering when you will cover the Duggars eventually.
Talk about another one branches off.
That's a lot of. That could go a lot of ways. That could go a lot of ways.
Okay, well.
Anyway,
add it to the list.
I love a fucked up story about fundamentalists that I personally follow.
That's why we're here.
Well, okay. Well, to keep things relatively light in the best way possible, look out soon for me covering Batboy, because what a genius idea! Genius idea. Maybe I'll do like a little like 2 or 3 parter where I cover like the most famous crazy monsters of the weekly world news or something.
God, that would be fun if we did. We should just do a separate podcast on like weekly world news updates,
We just read the paper to people. We just pretend that that's like the New York Times. Like that's in that podcast universe. The canon is that like oh, this is the only newspaper and this is just actually what's happening out in the world.
You know, I could really just pull out my broadcasting voice. I used to practice it quite a lot.
In other news, Batboy has been found from his cave.
You just gotta wait and hear it, folks. Just wait.
I'm very excited about that one. All right. Well, I will see you over in the after chats if you follow us on Patreon. Go hang out with us while we chit chat probably more about Batboy. I don't know.
Probably. We'll see.
And
That's
why
we
drink.